Tum. I go by Tum. And my pronouns are they, them. My experience is a little bit different as far as in the workplace because I actually own a business with my wife. We own a vegan food business, and my wife's a chef, and our goal is to make vegan food affordable and accessible to all communities. It's called Vintage Vegan Diner, and that's what we're doing right now. In the vegan community in general, I feel like queerness is often erased, no matter what area that is, whether it be in social media, whether it be an actual industry where you're working with other vegans or in vegan food. In my own situation, my own experience, I wasn't seeing a lot of vegans that look like me. I never saw a plus size vegan in any space, getting any recognition. And that's why people who are maybe not even queer, just people like Lizzo, that has created a whole different, realm of people who see veganism in a different light because Lizzo doesn't look like the typical vegan. And that's something that I get all the time because I'm perceived as a plus size Black woman. In the vegan community, we're always seeing a thin, white, straight woman. And that's okay to be that person, but it's not the only identity of the vegan community. And I think the only way to make space for those people is for people with that privilege to allow other people who look like me a seat at the table, because people don't realize that their influence has a major impact. Something so small as to just see someone for who they are and give them that opportunity to connect them with the right person, just to put in a good word of mouth, to speak highly of them, really makes a difference, because at the end of the day, racism, discrimination, and prejudice plays a part in everything. I feel like what would be needed to create those safe spaces is just representation. Like one person starting off to be in these spaces creates that opening for others to join in. Hiring queer people in your vegan businesses, hiring queer people, to work on different projects where veganism is involved is so important. I feel like the first time I actually was being seen and heard in a workspace was when we created our own workspace. I think that when we first started our business, we were really afraid for people to know who we were behind our brand. As Black people, as queer people, we just weren't sure how we would be received, especially being in a very niche industry of food, and especially vegan food. And because there's not a lot of people that look like us. And I feel like once we stepped out of that box and showed who we were and showed, that we're happily married together, I think that we actually were received so well. And being in this community here in Las Vegas, there is a really tight knit community in the arts district, the downtown area, and something that takes kind of a long time to cultivate those relationships that kind of happen to us at kind of rapid speed. And we've met a lot of other, really great queer people in the community who do different things, who work in marketing and food and events, different things like that. And I feel like there was definitely that representation that we didn't know was out there. And I feel like we were accepted and, really felt cherished, to be honest. I think that it's just not something that I ever would have expected. A few months ago for Pride Month, my wife and I were chosen as one of the caterers, the food vendors for the Pride Prom. And we were just so honored to be chosen, because it's just something that we wish we had as kids, or in high school, to have a prom where everyone is okay to be who they are, in these spaces, to just be authentic. And when we came in, I was blown away because everyone, the DJ, the artists who were performing, the food vendors, the people working the event, were all queer people, and everyone was proudly displaying, their different flags, and, just openly being who they are. And I think that that is huge. All those years of working in corporate jobs and, even going into interviews and feeling like I have to present a certain way, especially as a plus size trans person. I think that there is a really big disconnect on on that identity as a whole. I think that a lot of times we see one version of transness, and that a lot of times has close proximity to whiteness, to thinness, and different things like that. As we know, it's not the experience of everyone because there's so many different people, there's so many different ways to look trans, to be trans, and I think that we're always put in this box of trying to conform to something that's passing. And when you think about it, it's like, why are we putting these different measurements on ourselves to these heteronormative, cisgendered, standards that we'll never be able to achieve because that we're not meant to achieve those things. There isn't just one way of thinking. There isn't just one way of doing this. And non-binary trans people have been around since the beginning of time. There's a lot to reflect on as far as my own thoughts about how I feel about femininity, how I feel about myself, how I express myself, and also feeling like there isn't a need to change who you are, as a person, because just because you're not perceived the way that you want to be doesn't mean you won't ever achieve that. And I think that there's no need to change who you are on the inside because I think a lot of times, a lot of people who go through a transition, the people around you go through a period of mourning who they knew before and who you used to be to them. And maybe they're mourning their daughter or son, or their sister or brother, niece or nephew when you no longer identify as that person. But I feel like in my own experience, I really wanted the people close to me to know that I'm still me and my love for them hasn't changed and my energy about the way I live my life hasn't changed. And I think that was really important. My biggest goal for the future is to make as big of an impact as possible. And I say that in general because that is in so many different avenues. I feel like in my business, I want to make an impact with making vegan food affordable and accessible to lower income communities, especially communities of color, underserved communities that are in food deserts. That is our main goal. In our business in particular, nothing is over $5. So when we say affordable, we mean that. And I think that that has the ability to make a huge impact. And that is my goal with that. I think as an individual, my goal is to just to be authentically myself 100% because I feel like even now I have moments of imposter syndrome because who doesn't? And I think that it's really difficult sometimes when you don't fit into the box of what people think transness or non-binary people look like. The biggest advice I can give my 13-year-old self, and that would be to just to be yourself unapologetically and not wait so long to be who you are and not in a way of come out as soon as you can because not everyone is in a safe situation to do so and that's the reality of living this kind of life. But I think that it's important to know that you're valid.